Well, good day, everyone. My name is Hugo van Zyl. I'm the CTO, Managing Executive at Mobile Network at Telkom. So it's really a great privilege to speak to everyone this morning, and looking forward to the discussion. So just before I begin, to give you a very rapid context on Telkom in South Africa, we are the fixed incumbent network. Came from the post office days. We launched a mobile network in 2010. We came in as the fourth mobile operator in South Africa. We're currently the third from a market share position, but we are the largest mobile data network in the country. And just so you understand, Telkom as a group doesn't only provide mobile services, we provide fixed fiber services to consumers, and then also enterprise solutions, as well as some property solutions. So as we start now, and Herbert, yeah, thanks for the question. I think the important thing that I'd like to discuss today, and also the context, we heard from Rakuten and we heard from Dish. Telkom is also an established operator, and I think from that perspective, when we think about virtualization, there's other things to consider. There's the culture aspect, there's the business model aspect, and of course, there's the technology. So as I get into the presentation, I promise to hopefully drop some thought bombs. I want to keep the presentation short because the idea is really to just try and be a bit of a provocateur and solicit some comments from various people in the audience. And it's really with an intention to try and positively figure out how we can use the virtualization, because it definitely has benefits, but it's not a one size fits all. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So just very quickly, as an angle here, it really for me is a case of future shock, like Alvin Toffler's book from the 70s already, where the future's arriving so fast that we're having difficulty coping with it. And I think that's exactly where we are as networks at this point in time, especially existing networks. So we find from a consumer perspective that consumers are much more prone to now accept new technologies, and we've heard from various speakers here, culture, training. There's various aspects that we need to get through from a network telco perspective. So, we see lots of cases like I'll mention in the slides here that's in the wild. There's definitely things happening from a virtualization perspective, but we need to try and figure out, is it something that we can jump on right from the get-go? So I always use this slide, and if people seen it before, but it still is relevant for me. It still is a chicken and egg situation. Doesn't matter what technology intervention we talk about. And I think a lot of us know this model. We have this virtuous cycle where the tech can feed the creation of borderless services, and in turn that will feed higher demand, and that then starts feeding technology again. So that's great, and I think we all understand that that's how it works if the model works very well. The question is, how do we get over, as you can see in the middle of the diagram, all of the opposing forces and things that keep us away from from realizing the benefits that we would achieve. And then the big question always is, but where do we start? Do we start on the tech side? Do we take the leap of faith and invest in the networks, or in this case in virtualization? Or do we think from the customer, the demands perspective? And these are not easy things to handle. I'll say a couple of times in the discussion today, it's not a one size fits all, and businesses actually need to figure out for themselves, in the context of where they do business, in the context of their economical situation, and the business drivers, where do we start? But this is the big issue we need to solve going forward. Now, if we think about that in a more from a more overall perspective, there's input factors and there are outcomes that we need to achieve. And it's the idea is not to go through the details in the slide, but this is a model that we've adapted from the World Economic Forum. But where I want to give you a connection point to this is, and people might roll their eyes when I mention this, but when we think about the deployment of GSM many years ago, GSM was actually a great example of a technology intervention, but then driving a whole ecosystem. And the reason why most of us are here in this room is because of the power of that implementation of GSM at that stage. And I think GSM critically, if I look at it and from my understanding, was not only a technology aspect. It really powerfully addressed various other aspects of the ecosystem including things like, regulatory considerations, including things like, political boundaries with the roaming and so on, geopolitics and all of those sort of things, in addition to the business need and the business model. So I think this is very important for me, that we understand that, because the success ultimately of how we think about virtualization, how we think about 5G in the context of that, and I'll speak about 5G in a little bit. All of the ultimate success, and I think the ability to really gain benefit from virtualization, and to see it become a mass adopted method, if you will rely on not only the tech, but all of these different aspects, the political environment, the training environment, cultural environment, and so on. Now, to just bring it back to something that, I'm deliberately just using a bit of a ridiculous example, but something quite interesting that I picked up. There's a company, Alltech, that look at, how they can use various, let's call it fourth industrial revolution technologies to improve the rearing of chickens, or to increase the output of chicken farming. Now, some bonus marks for people who can identify on the right, what that picture is about. But what you see on that side is actually virtual reality goggles for chickens. Now, even the presenter who from Alltech, who presented this in 2018, said, "Look, it's a bit of an eccentric example, but I specifically chose that one because I want to just provoke the question and say, but why are we using some of these technologies, and what aspects of it are we using it?" So something like a virtual reality goggle for chickens, we could argue that might not be something useful, and that's also what Alltech said. But they also did make reference to making use of sensors and making use of robotics in the farms. Now, those are definitely technologies that can help. So the framing that we always need to do is, and I think like what was said in the studio now, how does it impact our business model and the EBITDA, and how do we take care of the different skill sets, and what it is that we have in our organizations as we think through virtualization. So from a Telkom perspective, we actually took a decision already in 2013, 2014 to start virtualizing from a mobile network perspective. And the reason why we started at that point really had to do with the fact that the technology was already available. And as you can see, we started on a very small scale, actually, just looking at the vast platforms that we had in 2014. And again, a very specific decision that we made. It suited our business model. It suited the way that we were running the network. We are still running the mobile network with a very light staff complement, and that benefited us. And as we then stepped through this, and we went from the virtualization of VAS to the virtualization of the core network, also still driving efficiencies. And then, we made also use of virtualizing our OSS stack, and making sure that we have the orchestration running that network for us. And at the moment, it's an end-to-end Huawei network. Now, with a view on the future, I think this is where it's going to be really exciting and interesting for us as well, is with Open RAN and Virtual RAN, there's definitely a need for us to also dip our toes in and make sure that we are ready for that environment. I think as what was mentioned before by Rakuten, one of the key things that we think about is, what will the operational model be around that? If we think about the standard network FCAPs, whether we think it's something for the past or not, it means we need to operate that network with excellence. So we have to figure out, how do we do that? And I'm very emboldened by some of the work that's also been done with that memorandum of understanding in Europe, where many of the leading operators in Europe have also come together and said, listen, how do we work with the standards and with the various suppliers of Open RAN to make sure that we have something that is sustainable, that we have scale, and that we can operate. I think from a Telkom perspective also, we've done some work on virtualization on fixed, but I think there it has been more experimental. As you can see, we virtualized some of the aspects of our packet optical transport network, but we haven't rolled that out en masse yet. And what we're really busy with at the moment is to get our OSS systems ready to, again, drive that automation so we can be sure, and orchestration, so we can be sure that we can actually wield the technology as we need it. Because ultimately, what we're also aiming for is on the edge computing side. We have lots of old infrastructure or exchange buildings where we can deploy edge computing, and we really see that as a benefit for Telkom. So finally, Just in summary, I would just say that we think that standardization is very important from a virtualization perspective, because that hopefully helps us that we don't, as operators, have to take on all of the responsibilities that used to come from the supplier's perspective. Standards are important, but that's not the only thing, and we actually need to think about the entire ecosystem. The DIY networks can be facilitators for us, or we might just see the emergence of new suppliers. But again, how does it translate and how does it support our business model? How do we serve our customers? And how do we make sure the EBITDAs from an operator perspective are intact? So thank you very much.
Hugo, thank you very much. It's really good of you to make us part of your day, and thank you very much for your presentation.